Microphone's on. Call to order the St. John study session for November 15th, 2023. Roll call, please.
Robert Burleson.
Here.
Yolanda Cardona.
Here.
John Gill is here. Joe Gomez-Stagel.
Here.
Bob Valoy is absent. Jenna Lordson.
Here.
John Kennedy.
Here.
Attorney Adam Decker.
Here.
Engineer John Dykstra.
Here.
Councilman Liaison Brian Blazak.
Present.
Town Manager Joe Wizawati is absent.
All right. Next on the agenda, we have Rose Garden Phase 3, Block 2. This is proposed final plat of Rose Garden. Mr. Reddick, how are you, sir?
Doing well, thank you. Doug Reddick with DVG, here representing Rose Garden. Since we were here a couple weeks ago, we've received our review letter, favorable review letter from Robinson, which is on the projector there. The client has paid the development review fee, and he is currently working on his letter of credit, as Jen and I discussed yesterday. So I believe we'll have everything in place for the next meeting.
Very good. Questions or comments for Mr. Reddick? John, everything look good? I see your letter says satisfactory, so
Yes.
everything, all questions, comments, everything good?
All good. Yeah.
Okay. Anything else? Come on, we can't let Doug leave this early. Let's let him wait a little bit. Come on.
I was thinking 7:05.
All right, sir. Thank you. We'll see you at the December meeting. Next on the agenda, we have Franciscan Alliance. This is a request for rezone of open space. Mr. Weiser, good evening, sir.
Good evening. Yeah, I think as I recall, we left it after the last meeting. The outstanding issue, although we could talk about anything, I would imagine, but the outstanding issue was to provide a tax impact study for your consideration, since this proposed project is in a TIF district, and Sender just completed it. And I apologize for providing it to you so late, but I just got it today myself. And I think it, Mr. Kennedy, I think it does what you ask it to do. And it gives you an idea of what the projections would be were this project a taxable entity. Then compares the real estate taxes, and then shows what would be in the TIF district, what would be dedicated to the TIF district, and then it compares the two. And obviously, since the facility is tax exempt, it doesn't generate anything at that point in the tax into the TIF district. But I think the critical issue is the last page, which shows the first phase of the project. As you'll recall, the ultimate thought is that this is going to be a multi-story building, but the first phase of the project shows that it would generate the 43 full-time equivalent jobs at the average salary, which then contributes approximately $5 million of economic activity. That doesn't include, of course, the costs of construction and the number of construction jobs that will be generated over a period of time, as well as the full-time equivalent jobs when it's finished. And obviously, it also doesn't. You may recall that when we were here, Jack Slager spoke on behalf of Schilling and indicated their support for the project, believing that it would help stimulate economic activity in the southern corridor of Wicker Avenue of US 41. And that it would probably help stimulate their project or proposed projects or thoughts on the west side of 41 as well. So that's where we believe our project provides the greatest benefit to the community. But to the extent that we can answer, either Maggie or I can answer the questions. We also have Ken's on here, right? Correct. Okay. We also have. How's Ken's last name? Yeah. Ken Cadler, and he's with us, and he's kind of the go-between with Sender, and he has done this before for his company, and he might be even better suited to answer any questions that you may have regarding the fiscal impact. So that's essentially it.
Ken's with who?
Tenant blank.
Tenant blank, okay,
I'm sorry,
thank you.
I should have
No, no.
identified that.
So the assessed value is 6 million. Senator Dalton got this from construction estimates of what they estimate the value of the building when it's fully constructed is? Or do you know how Senator and Associate
I-
came up with a $6 million assessed value?
I do not. I don't know if he looked at, any of the records in the assessor or auditor's office, as well as looking at construction costs. I don't, maybe if Ken could answer, he might have that answer. I don't know.
The 6 million would be the first floor, not the 4
That's
stories.
correct.
Ken, John Kennedy with the St. John Plan Commission, do you know, does Tun & Blank have a cost estimate for the construction of this facility?
He's muted. I see that he's
No, he should be.
Yeah, it's on the speakers, the mic is crossed out.
Hey, he's on
There you
mute.
go.
I'm sorry. Can you hear me now? I apologize. I'm
Not a problem,
traveling.
sir.
Yep. I believe that Senator Dalton took some figures that we had from a similar project we're working on in Valparaiso. So, quite honestly, and Maggie might be able to help me, I believe on this project we're looking at roughly 42,500 square feet. You're looking at about $750 a square feet just for the construction project, not finishing out some of the equipment and things that are needed for the FF&E for this project. So at 42,500 and roughly at $750 a square feet, we're looking at roughly about $38 million project.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you. I'm sorry. I just wanted to, I believe that is what Daniel Dalton from Senator Dalton had to help us accumulate or project in his report that he provided.
Okay. And in any of the other communities where Franciscan Alliance is in Michigan City, Crown Point, have they ever done a pilot or other type of development agreement with the community where they are in a TIF district?
Not in a TIF district. Not in a TIF district. And let me also add that we do have a building currently in, well, 2 locations in St. John, and because we lease those locations, we do pay real estate taxes. I don't want folks to think that we get off scot-free, whatever, at any time. But obviously, if it's a building that we own, we do exercise our not-for-profit status and do that. So we do have 2 locations in St. John's, one at 8325 Wicker Ave and one at 11355 97th. And again, those are owned by others, and we pay our respective portion of real estate taxes. But as far as in Valpo, for example, we did, because of the land we purchased and the previous owner of the land who did not come forward with a project that they were doing, we accepted their pilot taxes and it essentially states that when we get that project completed, then we will no longer be responsible for those pilot taxes. So, yeah.
And that site in Valparaiso, is that in a TIF district or an economic revitalization area?
I couldn't answer. I think it might be, but what was interesting is there were 4 parcels. 2 were within the city of Valparaiso, 2 were not, and we had to annex the other 2 into that. I don't believe that it was in a TIF district.
Okay. And Ken, you also own property within Shops 96.
Yeah, that's true. We have about 8.4 acres at the Shops at 96 that we bought from Boyer Construction. That is correct.
How many acres is that?
I think it's about 8.4,
8.4.
maybe about 8.2 acres. I forget exactly what it stands at because of some of the easements and some other things that took place. But yeah,
And that also is under our TIF district, correct?
that was under a development agreement, I think, that the town of St. John's had with Boyer Construction. And and we've accepted essentially that we will, provide that as well, similar to what he has in that agreement.
You mentioned real estate tax. Is that a one-time when you purchase the property, or is that an annual thing? I don't know.
I don't think they pay property tax.
Yeah, as a not-for-profit, a healthcare institute that is a not-for-profit, we don't pay. However, again, at 8325, what is the, oh my goodness, I'm forgetting, Meyer Properties, we have a Express Care and Working Well there, and as well as at 11355, that is owned by a large REIT. We pay, we rent 100% of that project. We pay real estate taxes that are required from that landowner, so.
But that's because you're leasing it. Is that correct?
That is correct. I mean, that is required in the lease, and we do so. I guess what I'm trying to say is that in any leased properties, and we do have some quite a bit throughout Lake County, everybody has this idea that maybe we don't pay any taxes. That's not true. We do. We pay property taxes, and they are typically, yes, under the lease situations. If we have a property we own, and as a not-for-profit entity, if we have for-profit tenants in our buildings, we do pay a portion of taxes based on that. Those for-profit entities that are within our buildings.
Can we get a breakdown of approximately how many tenants you may have that are leasing from you that will be for-profit or that have to pay taxes, property taxes?
Currently in St. John, none. I mean, all the taxes we pay is because we lease that space, 100%. When this project comes on board, Maggie and Jim could probably talk to this as well. The first phase is completely going to be St. Francis, Franciscan Alliance. The notion in the phase 2 is that we would, when we start to go vertical and add some stories, we will possibly, we're working on agreement, I can't share, but we're working on an agreement in which we will have another group, and then taxes would be applicable in this case. And we would pay based upon, again, that occupancy that they have in that building. That's what we would like to do, and again, as we've done in other locations throughout the organization, or throughout the state of Indiana, because we're not just in northern Indiana, we're in central Indiana, Indianapolis, Mooresville, Carmel, and we are in western Indiana and South Chicago.
Ken, do you know the projected daily water use?
Yeah, that I do not. I think I'll defer to my colleague, Maggie. I don't think we've done those calculations yet. Is that, Maggie, would that be a fair assessment?
That's correct. We have not.
Probably, the first phase, the final phase.
Yeah, and I don't think they've done quite those calculations. We have an engineering group called IMEG who's very good at these things, and I think they're helping us with that, and I don't recall seeing those figures yet on water consumption. But I do believe you guys just completed along US 41, because we were looking for the easement. I think you guys went from a 6-inch line to a 12-inch line along US 41 or Wicker Ave, and that impacted our area, and I think you guys completed all that work.
With this development, do you think you will maintain ownership of the 8.4 acres in Shops on 96?
At this point, that could change. I know that when I'll be transparent with the board that the notion is that the 8.4 under the Boyer construction, and that site was more probably utility and site pad ready, if you will. But the acreage that we are doing on this site was larger, giving us the opportunity to have a larger presence in St. John. So at that time, we opted, you know what, we wish to do a larger package and presence into the community of St. John's. So that's why we did what is being presented tonight. Right now, the 8.4 is kind of like on a standby, if you will. And there's always the opportunity of trying to consider, again, something that would be an entry, if you will, to help feed more to this location we're talking about tonight. But again, if somebody else were to come along and has a better concept that might be more related to, say, the express car wash, Wendy's, and those kind of things, we're open to consider that to sell if it calls for it. I'll just say this in a last comment. The Sisters of St. Francis and Franciscan Alliance, they're in healthcare. And I know as a tenant blank, as a vice president of real estate, and I advise them on their real estate matters, real estate's pretty low on the totem pole. And I'm not saying it in a negative sense. It's just that they wish to deliver health care. And so we work on these real estate issues, but again, that is not their primary focus. Their primary focus, as in this presentation tonight, is the 30 acres that we have where we are to, provide a bigger impact to the community in St. John's. And so that is what their real focus is. So I'm not trying to say that 8.4 acres is nothing. It's just that right now that's taking a bit of a backseat, if you will, in this case.
Appreciate that comment.
Sure.
And I guess, for quality of life or quality of place, having this type of development come in and creating, $55 million in salaries is a great thing.
Yeah.
But I've been on the Plan Commission now for 9 years, and if our development has grown in St. John, and one of the biggest issues I've always heard is the lack of infrastructure. And so we have a TIF district that helps, as we all know, fund infrastructure, and we got, St. Franciscan Alliance, which is a nonprofit looking at our TIF district. We have across the street, our neighbors, is a 501c3, so they don't pay into the TIF district.
Gotcha.
And north of them, I don't know what type of development they're going to put, and if that's going to be. And so I guess as a planning board, I just got to make sure that our TIF district is, intact for the next 20 years, and this town is continuing to grow. And how are we going to provide the services that this community needs if we can't generate bonding capacity because we can't generate tax increment financing? So that's, so I appreciate what you're looking to do. It's just, I guess, I just got to be sensitive to the future needs of the community and if this is the right type of position, because we just can't keep on putting in non-for-profits in our TIF district. It's just, I don't think it's the right direction but I just, Ken, and Maggie and Jim, I just received the assessment from Senator Dalton, and so give us time to digest it and review it. Mm-hmm. And then hopefully we could have them here at our December meeting so they can advise and answer any other questions this board might have.
Sure, and clearly understood. And again, I think in the first phase, it would be in that situation as we progress forward with some discussions, negotiations with bringing in some other groups that would be, again, for-profit entities that would help. But we feel that down the road, that portion might be out there. Again, I can't absolutely say that, obviously, but I do think that as the vertical expansion takes place, we think that would take place. But understood, completely understood from your viewpoint.
We're not going to let them go home early, are we? No, I'm kidding. Any other questions or comments? So to the board, we have the financial analysis. if there's any questions that you get from this, I would advise you send it to John or Jenna, so at least Dalton can come back. I'll see if they can actually be at our meeting here in August. If there's additional questions that,
December.
I'm sorry,
December.
December. Yeah,
Yeah.
December meeting,
Yeah.
if there's any additional questions that we don't have. So, and if not, if there's any other questions, comments, discussion, and again, I appreciate Franciscan Alliance for going through this. It just, we got to make it, while we're not the final decision, we got to make a educated recommendation to the council to do what's best for the community. So I appreciate you
Understood.
going through this.
Understood.
All right,
Okay, well,
Enjoy
thanks
your
very
evening.
much. Take care. Everybody have a great Thanksgiving, okay?
thank you.
Yep, thank you all. Thanks.
Thank you. Next on the agenda, we have the recommendation of amendments to the town subdivision control ordinance.
Yeah, so
Comments
we,
or questions?
On what?
The agenda to the SCO subdivision control ordinance, we had some,
yeah, on page 23, we fixed the intermediate asphalt layer to be 3.5 inches, which matches the design standards later on in the book. And then on page 88, we,
About the surface is correct, John? 1.5 inch?
yeah, it is. We
Okay.
checked with the Public Works Director, and 3.5 intermediate, 1.5 surface. So that those two numbers in this chart match the design standards. And then on page 88, we changed Rule 13 and Rule 5 per John Dykstra's comments with Bob Valoy. And we did the same change on page 104 and 105. There we go.
all right. So if there's no questions, and again, this is a living document. I know the gentleman that spoke talked about a lot of different changes that he would recommend. Those could always be added in the future.
Yep.
Yeah,
So-
and to speak to the streetlights, during my time working for the town of St. John, we actually removed every other streetlight in a section of town where the homes nearby complained that they were too close together.
Yeah, he said 300 feet.
Yeah, it's 600 feet, and that's what Public Works kind of wanted, and then he suggested the 300 feet, but I don't know, the distances were probably right around that 300-foot mark, and, well, first we actually, as the town, they complained that they were too bright, so we changed the ballast and the bulbs to a lesser wattage, and that still didn't appease the neighbors, so then they wound up taking out every other pole in order to get the ambient light down to appease the neighboring homes.
I can tell you, as you get older, your eyes get weaker. So, with that 300, I'm like, that's a great idea. Maybe not 300, because you get educated on why not 300. And maybe there's a happy medium.
So yeah, we did run that
stay
by
home
Public
when it gets
Works.
dark.
Yeah, when I say home now, when it gets dark. So it's a living document. Those recommendations were given, I think, to staff. And so as this proceeds forward, those could always be added after I would have the town
There were
departments
some-
review and staff.
There were some comments too that were actually for the zoning ordinance and not the subdivision control ordinance, so that's a whole other animal that hopefully we'll tackle next year.
Gotcha. That's great. All right. Any other questions for the board? Comments? All right. Item D, well lot 9. This is a proposed preliminary plat request. And if everything goes well and John gives us our primary send-off letter or satisfactory letter, this is a town property, would potentially ask the board to go for secondary at the same time or final. So, John, anything else I'm missing?
No, this is just we did the platting around it a couple meetings ago, and this was an exception to that plat that John Lawton and Steve Kill did. And so now we're platting it to make a lot of record that we could then issue a building permit for the well to be constructed.
Questions, comments? John's, how's it looking? Everything looking
So
good?
far, it's under review right now with a surveyor, so, yeah.
We don't get it approved unless I get a letter.
I know.
Like, you know,
Are we calling this a primary and final plat? Is that,
I'm gonna reach out to Taranga to make sure that they can get us the final plat as well. I was under the impression that we would get both, so I'll reach out to
it
them to
might
make
just
sure
be a
that we
matter
get
of
it.
having words changed, and otherwise it'll be the same.
Yeah, yep.
Okay.
if everything looks good and the board is willing to do both preliminary and final, then let's go in that direction.
Okay, yeah. If we get two separate documents,
Yeah.
I'll call them both out and, yes.
Okay. All right, any other questions?
Nope.
Last on the agenda is St. John Commons. This is approval for declaratory resolution for St. John Redevelopment Commission. From my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, so we approved the initial one, but it was only for the commercial. The residential on the backside was not included, so they're coming back to add
Yeah.
the residential. Am I going right?
The
in the right
residential was included on the map and shaded in, but the legal description of what was included did not include the residential area. So they're amending all of it and starting over to include the residential on both the map and in the legal description so that it is applicable to the residential.
And especially now with residential TIF you can do, the town will be able to generate TIF revenue from the residents. Beautiful. Any
And we
other
should have that document by November 30th, the revised one to include the residential area.
Beautiful. Any other questions or comments?
Nope.
All right. Anything for the good of cause? Anybody? Anybody? Going once, going twice? We are adjourned.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Did you say Easter Bunny?
Thank you.
You are way off today. What is going on over here?